Atheists always say that the virgin birth of Jesus is borrowed from Greco-Roman paganism, or sometimes they'll say it's borrowed from Hindu stories of Krishna, etc., and that the New Testament story of Jesus' birth, as recorded in the Gospel of Matthew and the Gospel of Luke, the virgin birth is actually a fabrication, or it's a myth that was borrowed from pre-Christian myth, pre-Christian myths being the Greco-Roman myths primarily, and that Muhammad, who they say is the author of the Quran, just plagiarized these ideas from Christians around him, plagiarized the idea of the virgin birth from Christians around him. So I'm going to be refuting two things: the idea that the virgin birth is actually copied from Greco-Roman myths, and that the Prophet Muhammad plagiarized the virgin birth of Jesus. So there's a there's a really important book that talks about the birth of Jesus more in depth, and it's called "The Birth of the Messiah" by Raymond Brown. Now Raymond Brown, although he was a Catholic, his scholarship was respected by both the Protestants and the Catholics. So Raymond Brown was a famous New Testament scholar who was not some kind of anti-supernatural liberal scholar or whatever. He was actually a Christian scholar who was educated in the Bible, primarily the New Testament, since the New Testament is where he got his PhD from, and I think he got a Master of Divinity. Yeah, I think he has a Master of Divinity too. So um, graduate he had graduate level training in biblical fields, especially the New Testament. So Raymond Brown was a very well educated and very well respected New Testament scholar. Anyways, Raymond Brown in his book *The Birth of the Messiah* on pages 517 to 533, and I'll leave a link to the Amazon. I'll leave a link to the Amazon page in the bottom for those of you who for those Christian or Muslim students who want to buy it. He talks about the idea of or the argument that Jesus' virgin birth actually came from Greco-Roman myths, and he says that the one substance, which would be the Holy Spirit, is so radically different from another, the Zeus's breath or magical golden droplets, that the latter is too icky sexual to have inspired Jew to have inspired Jews to borrow the idea. So basically, Raymond Brown is saying that the story of the Greco-Roman myths of the virgin birth is completely different from the virgin birth of Jesus, because the virgin birth of Jesus, according to both the gospel, according to all three, the Gospel of Matthew, the Gospel of Luke, and the Quran, it was a miracle from God, not through any kind of sexual intercourse between God, the angel, and the Virgin Mary. Rather, the angel breathes into her spirit, or the angel or the Holy Spirit goes into the Virgin Mary. And in the Quran, the angel Gabriel blows, or the angel Gabriel blesses the Virgin Mary with the virgin birth of Jesus without any kind of sexual encounter. But if you read the Greco-Roman myths, uh, uh, it says Zeus was Zeus's breath or his magical golden droplets impregnated those virgins, and that's false, because the idea is radically different. And another thing, and and again, this is Raymond Brown, *The Birth of the Messiah*, pages 517 to 533. So basically, what Raymond Brown is saying is it's not exactly the same. So it couldn't have influenced the whoever wrote the Gospel of Matthew and whoever wrote the Gospel of Luke. And again, if you want the footnotes, it's on page 602 It's Raymond Brown, The Birth of the Messiah, page 602, um, where he talks about how the words are different from these Greco-Roman pagan myths to in the New Testament story of how Jesus was born. So it was a completely different story. I found this article by John Sor Sor Sorson, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing the name, where it's an article called "Was the Virgin Birth of Jesus grounded in paganism?" So I'm not going to get into the entire article. I'm trying to keep this video short, but there's basically three arguments he makes, and I think he makes some pretty good points. He says the pagan god is not a virgin mother. The birth of the pagan god is a result of a sexual encounter, and keep in mind that the Gospels of Matthew and Luke is not a sexual encounter. It's through the Holy Spirit or the angel Gabriel in the Gospel of Luke as a kind of a miraculous sign from God. And then the third thing is the parallel exists, but the New Testament tradition actually predates the pagan mythology. In other words, the New Testament came first, and then the pagan mythology came years or decades later after the Gospels of Matthew and Luke were written. So in other words, the New Testament came, and then years later the pagan mythology came. So the New Testament tradition actually predates the pagan mythology. So the Christian tradition or the New Testament tradition was first, then the pagan tradition came later in history. For example, the whole Zeus thing, actually, the whole son of Zeus thing actually postdates Christianity. And then you have some people saying that some people talking about the Hindu myths or whatever, but the Hindu myth actually actually postdates Christianity. In other words, it came after the writings of the New Testament or the writings of the Gospel of Matthew and Luke. Then he talks about how like the birth of the pagan gods was a result of sexual encounter, while while the birth of Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew and Luke was a result of a miraculous sign. So I think he did a good job in it. I think that, for example, he says, according to R.C. Zener, a professor of Eastern religions at Oxford, these texts about the Hindu god Krishna, Krishna's virgin birth, actually, these texts don't take shape until sometime in the 4th century. So about 300 years after Jesus, the whole Krishna thing was established. So again, this guy does a good job in refuting, atheist or mythist claim that the virgin birth is a myth or it was stolen from pagan myths. So I think he does a good job. So I'll leave the link below. So again, if you want to read more on how the virgin birth of Jesus is unique, is a unique story, and it didn't copy off these previous Greco-Roman pagan myths primarily. I would suggest reading Raymond Brown's The Birth of the Messiah on pages 517 to 533. He talks about how the stories are different. The New Testament stories and the Greco-Roman stories are different. Or he shows that the Greco-Roman paganism actually postdates Christianity. So Christianity came first, then the Greco-Roman paganism came second. Then he talks about how the whole Greco-Roman births, the Greco-Roman God's births or whatever, is radically different from the New Testament story. The New Testament story of the virgin birth of Jesus, and it's too icky and sexual to have inspired the writers of the New Testament to borrow the idea of of a virgin birth. So again, that's just my thoughts or my 2 cents on the whole virgin birth of Jesus story. So the story, that it wasn't actually copied from these previous myths that predate Christianity, because it's the other way around. Christianity came first, or the virgin birth of Jesus came first, then those Greco-Roman paganisms came second. And another point is that the stories are actually different from one another, implying that the New Testament, that the writers of the Gospel of Matthew and Luke didn't copy off the Greco-Roman myths. So what about the Prophet Muhammad and the virgin birth? Is it possible that he heard the story of the virgin birth and he included it into the Quran? Again, anybody who studies the life of the Prophet Muhammad knows that the Prophet Muhammad was sincere. If the Prophet Muhammad was sincere, he wouldn't have knowingly taken these stories and put it into the Quran. And just because some stories are maintained in the Bible and in the Quran, just because there's similar stories found in the Bible and the Quran, that doesn't mean that that the author of the Quran was plagiarizing or copying. It could be that the Quran simply came to confirm their authenticity, especially when we take into consideration this is one of the functions of the Quran. See the Quran, chapter 5, verse 48. So these, the story of Jesus making the clay birds and the virgin birth and Jesus speaking when he's a baby. They could be true stories, but they didn't find their way. Not all those stories found their way into in the canonical Gospels, and they were written down by the infancy, by whoever wrote the infancy Gospel, Thomas, etc., etc. But these were true stories, and the Quran is actually confirming their authenticity, or the Quran is saying, yeah, these are true stories. If we read the Quran, chapter 5, verse 48. So this is just my thoughts on the virgin birth of Jesus, and refuting the atheist critics when they say that's just a myth and Muhammad just plagiarized that myth. So this is just my thoughts on the whole virgin birth of Jesus. Stay tuned. A lot more videos are up ahead, and if you guys have been paying attention to the community section on my channel, I made a second channel where I talk about 4K movies, Blu-rays, comic books, TV shows, video games, PS4, Xbox, etc. So if you want to know about my thoughts on those entertainment stuff, subscribe to my other channel. I'm going to be posting it on this channel too, but I want a separate channel, from religion, just focusing on that nerd stuff. So stay tuned. A lot more videos are up ahead. Thanks. Bye.